It's a beautiful fall day, and we're adding on to Cy's shop. Now, Cy is a darn good friend of mine. One of the closest friends I've ever had, really. We've spent a lot of time working together in each other's blacksmith shop and doing various projects and commissions, and him teaching me and the two of us working together. It's been great, and it's amounted to an opportunity to get acquainted with somebody that I would have never become acquainted with. And so he's been in my shop over the last few months when I have added on. You may have seen that happening in some earlier videos, and it kind of set off a light bulb in his head that he needed more shop space, because just like every other shop, we always store at least 10% more stuff than our shops can possibly hold. And so we're always thinking about how to enlarge our shop space. And there's nothing wrong with that. It does not necessarily mean a failure to plan appropriately. It just means that your interests and your projects and your tools have been growing. And that's just plain good. But once we started talking about adding on to his shop, there were all sorts of ideas that came and went, and lean-tos, or which end, or how do we do it, and what kind of construction, and here's what we've settled on. Full width of the shop, maintain the roof line, and head south, about 15 feet. Going to be a lot of square feet and a whole bunch of cubic feet, which will be used to store cannons and mortars and his Polaris and milling machines, and who knows what all is now plugging up his workshop that will soon be out here. And so I had the camera running, and I had our friends here helping, Steve and Rudy and Steve's brother-in-law, and we're all old. So this is the first job in a long time where I don't look around and think, I'm the oldest man on the job. In fact, we're 180 degrees out of that phase, because I look around and I think, I'm the youngest man on the job. We've got a combined experience level of 323 years working right here digging post holes. That pretty well shows you what we've learned from our experience, doesn't it? But as I watch this video and as we kind of get it ready to upload and send out to the world, here's the thing that strikes me, is that there is nothing like working with someone to really get to know them. Now, I've run across this a lot in my life. In fact, that's why I know Cy so well, and why we trust each other and work together so well, is because we've worked together so much. Maybe it's worked like that for you, that even sons and fathers and siblings and teachers and students and mothers and daughters and you name it. There's nothing quite like working with someone to mature your relationship and put it on a better, or at least a more honest footing. Now, working together doesn't strengthen every relationship. Sometimes it will end a relationship, because when you're working together, particularly for a period of time on something that's hard, it's easy for pretense to drop off. Because when you're working, you're in sometimes danger, and sometimes you're in pain, and sometimes there are disagreements, and sometimes there are negotiations, and sometimes things get broken or lost or done incorrectly, and you can attach blame or extend understanding. Sometimes you make money and sometimes you don't, and you can look back and see your accomplishment, and you can't do all of these things on a sports team or around the dinner table or in a classroom or at church or really anywhere else. Possibly in a foxhole, foxhole relationships and friendships, and trust is sort of iconic and legendary. And I think work can be like that, especially construction work, especially for old guys who are maybe a little slow and not as strong as they used to be, and their balance is not so great. Man, it made it a great experience to work with my friends. This is sort of typical Pacific Northwest pole barn construction. Pressure treated poles, embedded 4 feet, runs up there 16 feet, 17 feet. Oh, no, wrong, 14 feet. It's a 14-foot eave from here. So we're 4 foot down and 14 feet up. 412 pitch, very standard pitch. In this type of construction, these horizontal members in the wall are called girts, wall girts. I throw blocks in between there so that you're not just hanging the weight off the nails, but it sort of accumulates as it goes down. These are tighter centers, and they have to be, but it's good to support the wall metal well enough that a casual bump's not going to put a bend in it. So you got wall girts in the horizontal application and purlins. Those are not rafters up there, those are purlins. 2x8s because it's a slightly stretched out span. It's about a 14-foot span. So we put 2x8s on 16-inch centers. The 16-inch centers is overkill, but overkill's good in this case because that way you can walk around on that snap lock roofing and there's no flex, there's no give. You're not afraid you're going to put a kink in the roofing metal. So that's a place that it's just really worth buying some extra wood. The wood is Douglas fir. Doug fir is the wood you see on these hillsides around here. It's the best structural softwood in the United States, but southern yellow pine is nearly as good, though it pains me to admit it. And some of you may think it's better, but that's only because you've never cut into a Douglas fir.
How about Sitka spruce?
Sitka spruce is not as structural. It's good, it's light and it's strong, but it doesn't resist compression and it rots, and it's just Doug fir.
Made good airplanes.
It made good airplanes because it's light. It's got a good weight to strength ratio. So we had talked about putting a lean-to on the front or a lean-to on the back, and we finally just decided, you know what, let's just do this and get some space. I just went through a similar thing at my shop, and it just feels so good. I mean, you kind of get constrained, you're used to working in one spot, and then all of a sudden, you got room to stretch out. An interesting thing that the metal on the roof and on the sidewalls is made by a local company, Bruce and Dana, and you bought this from them 30 years ago? And they're still making the metal, and they're still using the same molds, and the metal now will fit the metal from then, and that's kind of cool. We got to drive to Salem to get it, but that's okay.
On the house too.
Oh yeah, same metal on the roof of the house, Bruce and Dana snap lock. The advantage of a snap lock roof is that there are no fasteners exposed to the sky, and so that roof is going to be waterproof for however long it takes that stuff to rust through, and that's going to be a good long time. So you've been watching 1, 2, 3, 4, and in one case 5 old men labor along at building a building. And the fact is, it's fun. It's fun when you're young, and it's more painful when you're old, but it does feel good to be able to get out and do something and have something to show for having done something. But there are moments. I hurt my knee a couple weeks ago, and so I climbed up there, and for the first time in my life I stepped out on a roof, and I thought, you got no business being up here. And it was funny because Rudy was putting that scaffold up there last week, and he had got his sequence off, and he was perched up there on one scaffold plank on the scaffold and another plank on top of the plank, and I heard him say as I went up there to provide a little assistance, I've got no business being up here. And so that's a painful realization, but doggone it, it feels good to be productive.
And I'm sitting here on the ground not being productive, watching them.
Yeah, but you're doing the right thing. It's good. So anyway, it's going to take us a while. We're only getting about 1 day a week on this, but 2 or 3 more weeks we'll have this thing waterproof, and it'll be a Merry Christmas or a Happy Thanksgiving or something. Douglas fir, green Douglas fir, a little less money, a little heavier. It's just plenty good for this. But these pressure-treated poles are sold as hem fir. And what that does is it gives the producers the latitude to either sell you a hemlock post or a grand fir post or a white fir post. And heaven forbid, I have seen them sneak in a pine board once in a while. And it's just not near as good. This stuff tends to twist and bow, but I guess they figure and we figure that it absorbs pressure treating pretty well. It's reasonably strong, and if you can get it hogtied and thrown on the ground and staked down, it'll lay there long enough to get the work done, but you better hurry, because if you let it stand in the sun any more than about a week, you're going to have something that you don't want to deal with, but you've got to. It'll curve, it'll twist. Well, no, it's just that once it's tied together, it can't go anywhere. But if you leave them standing there unsecured, if you leave them standing there not tied to their neighbors, then they're going to do what they're going to do. So we put 22 bags of concrete in here. 22 times 6 is 1,200.
More than that before I got done.
I brought 14, and you went and got 4 from Stern, so that's 18.
I got 8 80.
Okay, second.
No, 680s.
You got 6, so 6, oh, so there's 480. Second.
Plus 12 more.
Let's say 5, 6 is 19, 31. 31 bags times 6, 8. Okay, so we put about 2,200 pounds of concrete in these 5 holes. The holes got a little big, so that's about 2/3 of a yard. It's held down pretty well. They're deep, strong, straight. It'll work. It's a little tough keeping this guy patient, but sooner or later it'll all happen. There is, I think, an unintended consequence to learning a trade or a craft or to acquiring tools. You know, my experience has been that as much as almost anything else, the work that I can do and the tools that I have led to friendship and relationships and opportunities of all sorts. I saw a cartoon one time that really speaks to this and sort of casts this notion of working and ending up with friends in a bit of a cynical or sort of jaded light. And it was that there was a little boy standing next to his dad in the garage, and the dad had lots of tools on a pegboard rack on the wall. And he was an organized guy, so that each of the tools hanging on the rack was outlined in a black marker in the shape of the tool. So every tool would go back exactly where it was supposed to be. And boy, the guy had a lot of tools. And the kid looked up marveling next to his dad's leg and said, "Gee, Daddy, what do you make with all these tools?" And the dad looked down at him and with sort of a quizzical expression said, "Friends, mostly." Now that is true, because at some level we are all motivated by self-interest, and darn it, it's nice to have somebody that can do things and solve your problems. And you know what they say, if you've got friends, use them. But all that aside, one of the real blessings in being able to do something and do it well is that you get to do things for people and do it well. And people appreciate that. And when they find that they can trust you in that way, they're going to trust you in other ways. And then you find that you can reciprocate the trust. And first thing you know, what may have started out as just a simple job or giving somebody a boost sort of matures into a relationship that might last a good long time. And that might sort of change the trajectory of your life even. In a lot of cases in my life, it's just a cold, hard description of what happened. And nowhere more so than with my friend Cy.